Hello and welcome to Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and in this podcast, we meander through our shared delusions and stumble into ethereal shit talking as we dive into the waves of the human experience. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Current Wave. I'm here with my sweet sister and dear friend, Chandni. Hi, beauty. Thank you so much for being here today. I would love to start out by just welcoming you and thanking you for coming on to Current Wave. And I would love to have you introduce yourself in whatever way feels good today, wherever you're at.
Sure. I feel like we've already spoken about this, and this is the most important part of me starting to use my voice is introducing myself. I've been playing with how I'm going to introduce myself and how I do. But my given name, it's either Chandni or Chandni in Sanskrit. But my entire life, I've been going by Sean or Chandni because I'm from Ohio, and that's just how it was pronounced. And I'm still playing with it. And right now, in the time being, I feel like Sean is the perfect way as I segue into like my actual given born name and identity.
So beautiful. Yeah, I think that is a big part of like stepping into our truth and our power of exploring like that given name, that true pronunciation, the roots of that and our own relationship to that, and also the way that we kind of share that with others and also like correct people when our name is mispronounced or
Yeah,
not. I think especially if you have a name that's not easy to pronounce or is from a different culture, a different language in the US, there's a lot of just like breezing through that and maybe not fully listening and honoring. I mean, I think a lot of people really want to honor each other.
totally. They want to. They want to.
They want to, and we just have to kind of,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
been my experience on this earth plane is no matter what job I've had, they've actually asked me if they can call me my full name. Like
Mm.
every industry I've pretty much worked in, it's been like they prefer it and they want to learn it. And so I know that that is definitely something, that's important to people. And I also think like I've thought about this so much. Your name is a mantra. It's your first mantra and it's your personal mantra. The seed sounds that come out of your mouth with your given name are your mantra. Like think about the most important thing. How are you acknowledged? People say your name. They're like, Ayla, Ayla, right? And that's a mantra. You're responding to your mantra. It's your personal mantra. So I think when we change it and we create like monikers and nicknames, it's kind of taking away from this, mantra that you were given at birth. And even if let's say your name is like Brian Smith, you know how some people have these like kind of very common names? Even in that, there's so much magic if you break down the syllables and look at indigenous languages. And if you look at the meaning of your name, it ends up being like I guarantee every single person listening to this, if they were to go look up their name, the meaning, break down the syllables and the seed sounds, they would treat it like a mantra. They would treat it like a sacred mantra because that's what it is.
Wow, that's really beautiful. That just lands and resonates so much and makes so much sense. And I've not really heard anyone say that. And that yeah, I mean, it just feels like such an innate truth. And that vibration also, I think, that mantra of our name, I'm sure affects, which is what you're saying, like affects our cells, it affects our resonance in the world, the way that we show up, the way that our body is probably organized is around our name to some extent. Like if everything is vibration and sound and hearing that and saying that and embodying that name in various ways.
Yeah.
Really
And then
interesting.
commanding that other people also respect your personal mantra, right? And if we dive even deeper to that, because I am someone that's gone by a nickname or maybe the American English way of pronouncing my name,
Yeah.
what part of me doesn't want to be exposed, right? I'm still, this is the first time I'm ever being interviewed, really, aside from one other podcast that never came out. But I'm learning my voice. I'm relearning myself. And in that, I'm like exploring what part of me wanted to create a barrier between my resonance and my frequency, the true resonance. And what did Sean, the name Sean, represent in that? Like where does it land in my journey, and why I was continuing to use that name and allow people to pronounce it that way. And I still do. I still do. There's also a part of me that loves it because it represents mystery. And I love, like, whenever I say Sean, people are like, what do you mean? Like SEAN? Like they don't really, they can't really understand. And for me, I've always known and felt that mystery is really important, and it allows people to play. There's so much like liminal space when you leave some mystery. So that's why I still kind of love the idea of throwing that name out sometimes and letting people try to figure out where it came from and what it is, because you're playing in the liminal space and you don't get to see me fully right away. It takes work and the mystery's still there. So I'm still, this is so new to me in the last like 6 months, and going to India and having people pronounce my name the correct way all the time, which I'm not used to, right? I'm not used to that. And every time I almost like didn't recognize my own name. I was born and raised in Ohio, like in the Midwest. So that's just how I grew up. And I had moments where I didn't recognize my own name. And I think that's like wild to think about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many pieces here, and you're bringing us into sort of like the first area that I want to explore with you. And but before doing that, I'm curious, what is the meaning of your name? Do you feel comfortable sharing any pieces of that, or yeah?
Yeah. Oh, that is such a big, that I've always resonated with. So, Jand means moon in Sanskrit, and Chandni means moonlight. Literally, that's what it translates to. And in India, like, I had the scariest security guard when I was leaving Hyderabad. He had like these massive guns. I'm going into the airport, and I'm like, this guy's so intimidating. And he was like so stoic. And he looked at my passport, like opened it up and was like smiling. And I'm like, what? I was like terrified. I don't know why, but he was smiling and he said, your name is so beautiful. It means moonlight. And I said, I know. I think because it's a US passport, he thought I didn't know Sanskrit or didn't know my name. I was like, wow. It like actually that happened on my first day there. And it kind of like set the tone for the rest of the trip, and like learning myself and my family tree and my name specifically. And because I went by Moon for so long, I was talking to a friend of mine about this. She's like, I think you need to start using your full name because you're not just the moon. You're someone who illuminates the darkness. It's what comes out of you that helps walk people through darkness. So, full moonlight is so important because that's what you do sometimes when I call you with something dark, or, you have this ability to bring light to something. And that's not the moon, that's moonlight. That's like the light coming off the moon. And that really did set kind of this like, it's a cosmic play of my name, and it's been playing out in front of me now. So it means, the longest way of me saying it means moonlight, like moon and moonlight.
You're not going to believe this, but you will. But Ayla is also the halo of light around the moon. It's not moonlight, it's the halo of light specifically.
First of all, how did you
In,
keep,
in
how did you keep that face when I was
I
talking?
don't know, because I was just like, I was just with you. I was just listening to your story. Like it's your story, that part. Yeah,
Oh,
and
it's also yours.
that's like in Turkish is that meaning? Because
Ayla,
it's a common like a common name in Turkey.
I landed in Turkey on my way to India. And on the way back, I took Turkish Airlines. And I feel a really deep connection with Turkey. One of my very good, nearest, dearest friends is from there. And I've just had a wonderful time there with the culture. Just, there's something that resonates. It's like a past life. I once had a dream where I was speaking Turkish. It was so wild. But the fact that that's what your name means in Turkish is, I mean, I believe it just based on our friendship. Like I was thinking about that earlier. Like our friendship is so like this continuous story that just keeps revealing itself. And that is one of those, this is one of those moments. It's wild.
I love that connection of like
So
that
wild.
totally different languages, totally different. Yeah. Yeah, the halo of light around the moon and moonlight.
What?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. And in Hebrew it's oak tree. So like that's also like another.
That resonates with me for a different reason, but we will get into that at some point. I'm like, so this happens, and obviously this happens with you and I,
Yeah,
and
we have
a
so
handful of
many.
people. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. Wow.
I love that. Okay. Well, yeah, we've been having a lot of different conversations like over the last few months over voice notes and just sharing our insights and journeys and thoughts and prayers and hopes and dreams and struggles. And so I'm just so excited for this conversation. And we've been talking a lot about creation and bringing things into being and like the journey of that for both of us and feeling sort of some aspects of feeling like a late blooming or all of these things. And I wanted to kind of start with that from this angle that you're speaking to of being seen. And you also shared in you had sent me an email, and in that there were some pieces around how you really felt for a lot of your life, like not fully on earth, sort of in the ether, in the dream world, not here. And I was thinking in the last kind of 24 hours, we talked on Friday, and we were just having this beautiful conversation and talking about so many different aspects of life. But I was really like, wow, that makes sense if you're really in the ether and on some level disembodied, like not here on earth. Of course, it's going to be hard to be seen, and it might be really hard to create things on the earth plane if you're like playing way out there, which is beautiful. I don't think there's any like right or wrong. It's just this journey of kind of landing and perhaps being a soul that's more comfortable off the earth plane, but we're here. And so, like, landing in our bodies, landing in our power and our purpose and our work and our earth creation energy. And I know there's so much here, but I just wanted to kind of start in this realm of just your journey, your experience being in the ether and now kind of transitioning to earth, maybe
Yeah.
playing with the idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's really that real. It really is that real and literal for me. I mean, it sounds ridiculous and crazy because people are like, what do you mean? I worked with you here when you were 16 or whatever the case is. It's like, but I wasn't really there. I wasn't there. And, that I think what's happening for me right now is when there's so much talk about rebirth, like a collective rebirth. There's so much talk right now about, I just hear rebirth constantly. It's like resonating all over. For me, it's literal. Like, I actually feel like I look down at my body and I'm like, oh my God, this is what I look like. Like, I'm experiencing a rebirth, and it's because I've spent most of my life in the ethers. And I really want to touch on why I
Yeah.
was up there, because I think this is really important to understand. In a type of therapy called bioenergetics or core energetics, which is a somatic therapy that I did years ago. And I'm really connected to that world. I have friends that are practitioners, I have friends that are training to be practitioners in that world. And one of the body types, I think there's like seven. One of them is called the leaving pattern. It's the first pattern. When I found out about the leaving pattern, I was like, oh, this is it. And if you want to take it literally without spirit playing a role, it's that you experienced some sort of trauma while you were in the womb. And that could be via your mother experiencing trauma. She could have gotten a car accident and you took on the energetics of that experience. And when you were born, you stayed anchored in that experience because it was too scary for you to kind of embody and come into your body, whatever happened while you were in the womb.
Yeah.
Spiritually, because of what I've experienced, and whether other people believe this or not, and I've experienced past lives, I've experienced so much. I've always been told I'm an extremely old spirit. I think when most people talk to me, A, they don't believe my age, and B, end up saying like, you just seem like so much older. Like, a lot of my friends here in Florida are like 80, 90. and they're always telling me like, this doesn't make sense. You're talking about things that like I would just not expect someone your age to say. That all ties into me being more comfortable, suspended in a liminal space, so that I'm not anchored into a certain age, a certain, like, like whatever it may be, whatever people typecast you as when you become human and incarnate into this body, and whatever programmings get downloaded. I was so incredibly uncomfortable with that labeling for pretty much my entire life. And it did cause me to constantly like float back to the ethers, because I'm like, no, 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 I don't want that. Or I'm not this person's girlfriend, or I'm not, do you know what I mean? It was just this understanding of, but there's so much more and you aren't seeing it. And this is boring, you know? And so I did that for a really long time, like most of my life. And I would do things to purposefully disassociate so I could go back up to the ethers and be there. When I felt really in my body and embodied, there were things that I did to bring myself back up into the ethers. And it
Yeah.
felt more fun and safe and familiar. And in the same breath, I never created anything here when I know I was meant to create. I was incarnated here to be a creator, and I couldn't commit. I started so many little random little businesses that like never came into
Mhm.
fruition, and people would be like, "Where did that go? Like, where did those block printed bed sheets go that you had a Kickstarter for?" Or like, and I'm like, "I don't know. I just floated back to the ethers. Like I couldn't, I wasn't having fun with the earthly experience, and it didn't feel like I was serving me. And a lot of times that made me just not want to be here at all. As crazy as that sounds, like, I don't know if it was in a little like suicidal way of wanting to leave my body, but there were definitely moments where I was like what's the point of this, right? And all of those loves and experiences I have from past lives that I feel now just felt so much more profound. I'm like, why don't I just go back up there and experience those, right? So yeah, it's been quite the journey to get back here in this body.
So interesting, and thank you for sharing that so vulnerably and openly, because I think a lot of people have versions of that experience. Maybe not to you sound extremely conscious of your experience and like aware of your story and tracking yourself in this. But I like really think that we where we come from and where we go back to is somewhere that I also feel deeply safe in and deeply connected. Like Earth is the scary part. Like
Mm,
this is much harder, I think, for some of us. And if you have that imprint and that memory of the beyond, whatever that is, I think it can feel more challenging to be here. Be like, oh my gosh, this is so constricting, it's so finite, it's so dense, it's so uncomfortable. And that's also, I'm sure that's like one of the reasons why we get along so well. And like both of us have that of like, and it's also interesting is I think that a lot of people are hesitant to talk about that desire to not be here because I feel like that's been really labeled in a certain way and very negatively and very like a indicator of like bad mental health or some kind of issue that's really big, but I actually think that's very human and very real, and I like want to speak to it just because I'm all about like saying the scary thing right now or like the thing that other people don't want to say, because I definitely haven't experienced that. It's not for me about like not wanting to be here in terms of like it being connected to suicide or death. It's just like not wanting to be here because of the density and the intensity, and like it feels so much less fun, as you said. Like the ether is so infinite and this place is so finite, or that's how we've been experiencing it, which I
yes.
think like that's another thing we'll get to is like that's shifting. So maybe
Hmm.
that's why we're like excited to be here now and we're like, let's go because it's changing and like that the veil is the veil's changing. But
Yeah.
we'll come back to that. But
Wow.
uh,
I just felt so much in what you were sharing, which always happens when you speak to me. Like we have this where I'm like, there's so much coming in when you speak, and there is a familiarity with you and I for sure. So it's like you're speaking, you are a direct reflection. And when I can't fully articulate, you somehow are able to articulate exactly what I meant to say, right? And only Ayla's way of saying it, if that makes sense. It's like, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, Ayla just said it that way. And I have felt it. Specifically speaking on like this feeling of maybe even feeling like shame around an experience as a spiritual being that has trouble wanting to be here and play in the mundane,
Yeah.
why we've been like, why it feels shameful, or why, it's dude, it is directly correlated with how they kind of have tied mental health into it. It's like this immediate polarized, like, oh my God, you need to see a doctor. Like if I say something like that, right? And that's been most of my life, like where I feel like if I said something like that out loud, like an ex-partner or something would be like what? Go see a therapist. Like that's crazy. And it's now, I think we're shifting into the space which we will talk about on the earth, and it's becoming more and more comfortable to talk about these. It's just liminal feelings. They're just unsuspended feelings. They're not literal. And it's people are now starting to see into the liminal space because the veil is so thin, and it's becoming more accepted to say things like this, and people are able to like accept nuance, right, in these spaces. But yeah, and I think this also, I never didn't want to not have an earthly experience. It's the same way. But I know, and maybe you have experienced this as well. I also was rewarded for being in the spirit realm all the time, whether that be through being a teacher, a spiritual teacher, or a guide, or being in a spiritual community where people would see me as this and come to me for something very specific. Or I don't know, I'm sure this you've experienced this, where a stranger feels connected to you because you are so connected to the ethers, and they want to know more, and they're like kind of like so curious about you. And for me, that's felt so rewarding throughout my life, like, oh, maybe I'm just meant to be spirit, because this is why people connect to me. They want to know something spiritual, or they're trying to understand something in the ethers that they can't bring down, and I'm able to do that, right? So also being like on one side being told like, wow, you're crazy, what do you mean? And then also on the other side being rewarded for being this spiritual creature here on earth, right? Or I don't know, spiritual is such a not the right word, that's not it, but you know what I mean, like someone that kind of functions in the higher realms, kind of stays there mainly even in their human walk, are
Yeah.
oftentimes looked at as very like special in certain capacities, and that can kind of confirm that we should stay in that state, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, I'll stay there. You like that? Good. Let me just stay there. Let me not embody this earthly experience.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I really get that. And right, you're that level of being seen in that way, which is really interesting, of yeah, of sort of that desire to be seen and then being seen for sort of not being here on one hand. There's something there. I'm not sure what it is. I'm curious, do you know what your north and south nodes are in astrology, in tropical astrology?
I don't know any of it. I think a few people have broken some things down. I don't know anything about my chart. Going back to the chart thing really quick, because I did want to say this with the names that I think is really interesting, is in my culture, when you're born, they pull the chart, right? Like in my where I'm from at least, they pull your chart when you're born, and they base it off where the moon is, and you get a couple syllables to choose from to name your child if you follow that. And my parents followed that with me. And so the CH was a syllable that they had been given based on my moon, which I know in Vedic astrology is Pisces, and I know in Western astrology I don't think I even have any Pisces in my chart, but it's a very different set. So I think that's really interesting too, that they provide like syllables based off your chart, and that is your name. That should be your name.
That's so interesting. Vedic is really deeply fascinating, and really, yeah, I don't know as much about that system, but that's really cool. I would just be curious, like Western astrology, my south node is in Cancer in my 12th house, and I think like I feel a similar vibe from you, because that's sort of like where your past lives live, and like Cancer is a really dreamy sort of like there's some aspect to me of that experience of being like really there's like this safety and this like need for safety and being in that Cancer shell and being sort of in this feminine soft dream world. So I was just curious, like I wonder, well, we can look after this just for
Yeah,
us to know, but
sounds
and
about
so
right.
opposite of that is Capricorn. So for me, it's like this part of my arc on this life is like stepping into that Capricorn energy, which is really grounded, really here, really rooted, really like on earth. And I'm curious if you have something there that would be interesting for us to look at,
Yeah,
like that arc of
absolutely.
landing here and maybe that part of us that's pulling to the past lives, to the ether, to that space.
Yeah. Everything you just expressed feels about right. So let's see after. Let's do a little follow up.
So in all of this, there's something else that you mentioned in this email that you sent me that I was curious about that is all in this realm. But you said that you discovered this 18th century idea of the glass delusion. What is that? I've never heard of that at all. If
So
you do you want
I,
to to that at
yes, because it's such a big, it's so big for me. Like first of all, I just joined Substack because I'm so far behind with technology. I'm just not, and I know that there's going to be a bunch of memes coming out soon about making fun of Substack girls, but like, I love it so much. I think I have like 4 followers. I don't, none of that really is important to me, but I think the first thing I wrote about on Substack was glass delusion, like last week.
all? I'll have to follow you.
It's just a bunch of like meanderings, but the glass delusion is basically something that was like considered a psychiatric disorder from like the 15th century to the 17th century. Something happened where glass wasn't just discovered, but this happened collectively. Like there was more than one person. The king of whatever, I forgot what king it was, also was suffering from it. And essentially, they looked at glass and in my spiritual understanding of things and understanding permeability and being able to take on something like the characteristics of something or someone as being someone who's so sensitive, right? um, they literally thought they were glass. They physically thought they were made of glass because they saw the fragility of this object, and then when it shattered they saw what would happen to it. And again, this is not just one person, this is a psychiatric disorder. And they literally took on the characteristics, and basically they would create all of these contraptions like rods so that if they were to fall over or if someone were to touch them, they wouldn't shatter. They couldn't. It was really, it got bad. Like the paranoia was like there. And the reason why I feel so connected to it, and the first time I read about it, I started crying, which is I cry a lot. I'm known as a crybaby, so it's fine. But I was crying like because I felt that. I really understood, and I don't know if it's a psychiatric disorder, but that feeling of feeling so fragile that if anyone mishandles you or if anything were to happen, that you would just shatter, you wouldn't survive and you won't make it. And this is so directly correlates with me being in my body for the first time, right? It's like now I have to really sit with that fear. I really have to sit with that. And it probably played a big role in why I was always out of my body and just surfing the ethers, right? Because of that fragility and that fear of that fragility and being shattered or mishandled, or like, as funny as that is, like it's just resonated so deeply. And I think I wrote on Substack last week that I'm constantly oscillating between glass delusion and feeling a devotion so deeply that I want to become the person when they're talking to me, or like I literally there I love so much and so deeply like people and these type of conversations, that part of me wants to like enmesh and just become them because you want to be in their skin because you love it so much. I had a boyfriend once that I think about this all the time. We were a partner. When we would walk down the street, I was so infatuated by him that I would put my hand in his pocket and hold his hand in the pocket because I literally wanted to feel like what it felt like to be in his pocket, like to
Yeah.
to be his hand in his pocket. And like the thought, even I remember once, because he was in the music industry, he had sensitive hearing, and we there was like a loud car that went by, and I immediately covered his ears. And he would tell me that story all the time. So he was like, that was the most precious thing you did, because I immediately covered his ears. And that is how I feel on my daily walk all the time, like this. But I oscillate because then I become fragile. I feel this like delusion of I'm too fragile though, so don't touch me, don't come near me, let me stay here. So glass delusion is, and even today I thought, am I glass delusion or am I in devotion? And today I feel deeply, I ask myself that in the morning. Today I feel deeply in this devotional state of devotion to you, devotion to this conversation. But just last week, and after returning from my trip to India, I felt like glass. Like I felt like such delicate hand blown glass. It was terrifying. It was awful. It was really awful.
Yeah, I'm just really taking that all in because there's such preciousness there and such a deep knowing of something so much bigger is really the way I'm interpreting of just your connection with the beyond and the mystery. And whatever that is, like those are the words that I'm using right now for creation, creator, like the other realms, the higher realms, the deeper realms, like that the thing beyond what we can see. I think that like you're speaking to me like the most poignant part of the human condition of like this severing from source when we are born into human bodies and this forgetting of our connection, and like that is that glass part of like, oh my gosh, we're this infinite part of source, we're connected to everything, and then we're put into a body and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so delicate, like I could break, I could shatter, like I could die, I could be compromised at any second. Like we humans are so bizarre because we're in part wildly resilient, like we can survive so much, and yet like we we are fragile. We are like these delicate little things like plopped down on this earth plane. And all I'm hearing is you're deeply connected to that on such an intense level. And also your connection with other people to me is that knowing that we're all one, we're all deeply connected. And so, like, that empathy and that ability to kind of like really be in everyone's experience and kind of really in that realm is such a superpower ultimately, and I think can be really overwhelming and really hard to be with for like the first part of our lives until you learn to kind of create those barriers and that containment and those protective things so that you can thrive on the earth plane.
Yeah. Once again, so much. There's so much.
That's how I feel when you're speaking as well. I feel like this all really ties into this theme of being seen and the layers of being seen and the layers of us arriving into ourselves and seeing ourselves first and foremost and then opening up those layers for others to see us. It does sound like you kind of have these different levels and different protections because of your innate sensitivity. I want to use the word fragility, but I don't mean it in like a negative way at all. Like I think that that is part of your superpower, this fragility. And it's sort of like, okay, of course there's sort of a barrier to being seen and to being here, and how I think both of us have been talking about this a lot because we have this desire to be seen and this desire to be perceived by the world now. And that has not always been there, or it's been there, but the fear has been bigger than the
Hmm.
desire. Now it's sort
Hmm.
of like the desire is growing bigger than the fear.
Hmm.
And it's time to step in to more of who you are and why you're here and what your path is, and to have safe recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, you're nailing it. I was just thinking about the word fragility when you said it, and you're like, I don't know if I like it. I love that word. I love that word. I think it's such a beautiful word. Just when you were saying, I was like, God, it sounds so, so beautiful. And I like lost my train of thought because I went into the ethers for a second because I'm like, I just looked up the etymology of fragile because I just was like, what that word, this is what I always do when something like resonates inside my bones and my spirit. I'm like, why is that word feel so like right and good? And we've been told it's not. But I went in and it's just, of course, it's from the 15th century, right when the glass delusion kind of started, like the whole delusion. And it's French, and there's actually some Indo European roots to it. And it just means what I think is interesting, and I'm sorry, I'm going off topic for a second, but it just means to break, morally weak, I think is very interesting. That's the etymology of when in the 15th century kind of came in, liable to sin or morally weak. And of course, I think this is when the indoctrination of religion was really at its like peak
Yeah.
of like morals were coming into play and all these. I think that's very, very interesting. I'm sorry, I just got so off topic, Layla. Now I don't even know what you said after the.
That's amazing. I mean, I would be curious to go deeper perhaps into other languages of like the their words for fragile and what's beneath that, because I agree. I feel like there's something actually really sacred there. And like that sounds like something that was maybe, as you're alluding to, sort of like co-opted by a certain lens of religion that was more about control and us being a certain way. But I'm curious if there are deeper threads to that that are more powerful, because to me there's like something very alive in it. There's something very like honoring fragility, like honoring that this all is impermanent. It's
Yeah.
more aligned with impermanence to me.
Maybe that felt so right. That felt so right. Okay, everything's clicking back into place. This
Yeah.
is also my problem with why I haven't like started a podcast or like I wanted to do one, we'll see, where I just like quick 5 minute downloads that I upload was, but this is what happens to me. Like in that moment, I'm like, I need to know the etymology of this word. And then you just clicked into place exactly where I was like, where my head was going. But normally I'd spend 3 hours up there just like trying to explore why the word felt like resonated and what else it connects to. So you just made it click into place. And that makes so much sense to me. And also on another note, I'm not going to go off on a tangent about languaging, what you just introduced to me. And I want this to stick in my psyche. So afterwards I can kind of move through this, but I'm always looking up the etymology of words. I'm so interested in the root of the word itself. I think that I never really look at definitions. I go straight to etymology. And you said something really interesting when you said, I wonder what that word is in other languages. It's almost the opposite of etymology because like I'm not digging the root apart and picking it apart and getting every syllable. It's literally another language, and what is the root there, like why did they say it and how did they say it? And we know, like, as Farsi is one of my favorite languages, Persian like culture in general is probably one of my favorites, and those words can send you out like into the ethers, like with just one word means one whole beautiful sentence. Like one of my favorite words that I used to call someone that I loved, who's no longer here on this planet, but I used to call him Nafasan. And that literally translates to a lover that is your breath, like your actual breath. And it's just one word. And all you have to say is that one word, and it turns into this, like that languaging is so important. And of course, we know English isn't so, it doesn't really contain that sort of depth in languaging. Just literally, when you look at the history of English and where it's derived from, like doesn't have that same, we're very Latin derived, and some of these ancient languages, like even Zulu, and these Zulu languages are like they're making clicking sounds, and it expresses so much, like you know what I mean, like, or Mandarin or Chinese. Very interesting. These are the tangents that will take me off, so bring me back like whenever you feel necessary, or if it's
It is
necessary.
it is deeply interesting, and I think like right, I think like my orientation toward this is like following the feeling, right? So I'm feeling into fragility. What does that actually mean to me? Which is impermanence. And so in some language somewhere, I bet that that's the connection to fragility.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so many ways to navigate meaning, and speech is one of them, but there's something so much more beyond speech. And in different languages, like they all have their own lineage of capturing, of humans attempting to capture our lived experience and express it. And there's still so much we can't do. And to your point, I mean, that word that you shared was, what is it that you used to call
I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, but nafasam.
Yeah, I mean, right? Like Spanish has some of those words too, where it's like these intricate, nuanced feelings of life that they have a word for. And English doesn't have that. We use a bunch of words to describe something, to use this whole sentence, but there's not words that capture like the way light. I know I don't know Japanese, but I know that there's a lot of words in Japanese that are like the way light falls at 3 p.m. on a cherry tree.
Yes, they are so, everything they do is so
It's
poetic.
like,
That's
oh my
hilarious.
gosh, insanely beautiful. And just like the human desire to describe our experience and
Mhm.
to try to articulate this mystery of life, which is like what we're talking about in this conversation. So there are no tangents. Everything is bringing us where we need to be.
And yeah, it brings me back what you were originally saying as far as mystery goes and being seen, and why I've like, although I know we feel the call to be seen now, right? And I do believe it's because the veil is thinning and there is more space for us to be seen, and the lenses are kind of clarifying, and so people will be able to receive it, whereas maybe 5, 10 years ago they might not have been able to receive what we're want to share with the world. But I also think about why mystery is important to me and why I still don't want to be fully seen, and navigating that experience of like starting a business and knowing that parts of me kind of have to come out because it is the essence of this product that I've created. But like I right now am doing a lot of work around what parts of my story and myself am I willing to share as medicine, like from my medicine cabinet, what am I willing to alchemize and concoct to share with the world? And what part of me is actually still going to honor mystery? I'm not sure if there's someone walking this earth plane that is meant for me, like a man that is meant for me. I'm not, obviously, my story. So there's a lot of layers to that. Let's say there is someone. Do I feel someone sometimes? Yes. Even in that, I want him to be able to unwrap me like a gift. And if that is the case, like think about how we wrap gifts and how like the most fun part is unwrapping the gift, right? Like the process of unwrapping this thing and getting, we don't even know what you're getting yet, but every time you see a little piece of this thing, like as you're unwrapping. And that is what I feel like I owe my beloved, is that mystery of like, you get to know me, like, and my story and who I am and my essence. It's reserved for you. And I don't want that to be leaking out, and essentially. And so right now I'm really in that space of like, that I launched a business, and in that, like, people have been pushing, like, you need to be seen. You need to be seen. I mean, the amount of times I've heard that, I'm like, okay, like, what does that mean to you? Because it means something different to me. And I often think like 20 years ago, what did being seen mean? Because we didn't have Instagram. So being seen meant something else. It might have been that I set up a workshop at my local yoga studio and talked about my oil, right? So that's a different level of seen. And my uncomfortability with the interwebs and the metaverse and this world is that we're leaking our essence and our mystery, especially women sometimes. And there is a delicate game there that should be played, and a lot of your essence should be reserved for moments like even like this one, right? This is I don't feel like I'm leaking my essence. I feel like we're sharing together. Yeah, the being seen thing is, so there are layers to that, because it's not as easy as, oh, I didn't want to be seen and now I'm being called to be seen, right? It's like, no, there's a lot to navigate within that realm.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think what you're saying is really important. And what's landing for me right now is that every person has a unique way that they want to share themselves and be seen. And I think that really a big part of finding our way is being really clear of our own desire and orientation to that, right? Because, and the easiest way for me to look at that is astrology, because there's like a lot of indicators in astrology of how you might want to be seen. I am a Leo rising. So Leo is a very outward expression of self. So it being my rising, that's my identity of my first house is ruled by Leo energy. And that is like a, I'm here, I'm the star. It's a bit of the performer and the creator that's much more on the outward stage. Whereas if someone has a different rising sign, and I also have a Gemini sun, which is also a pretty outward expression of self.
Wow, wow.
And so like my natural inclination is like, oh, I'm here. I'm fine. Like here's my photo. Here's this. Ticka ticka ticka. Like really in this Gemini nature of like my essential self being my sun and being in Gemini, and then my rising being in Leo. I'm like, here I am, hand it all over.
What is
And
your moon sign? I'm so curious about your moon sign. I know a little bit about this part, these three signs. So
yeah,
and I can't wait for you after this to dig in with me because I have a feeling that because I've always kind of like astrology, I've had a weird relationship with it. And so I'm interested because now that you're speaking on it, the familiarity is being activated. And everything you're saying almost feels like the opposite of who I am with yours. But that's why
yeah,
I feel so into you is because you are reflecting back to me a part of me that is also this, right? And so it's like so interesting. So what is your moon sign? Sorry.
it's Pisces.
Pisces. Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So really, yeah, and that
Yeah.
really does make sense, especially if you know me intimately, of just like my soft feeling body is very much in the ether. Like Pisces
Dreamy.
is its traditional ruler is Jupiter, which is expansive, is like
Mm,
going, and Neptune is its modern ruler, and that is sort of like the dreams, the fantasy, the delusions, the unseen realms are associated with Pisces in a lot of ways. So my emotional body is very much in that, and very vast and very sensitive and very Piscean in a lot of ways. We'll look at your chart because I'm really curious. The way I approach astrology is like it can be a tool, it can be useful. I hold it with an open palm. I don't
yeah,
like find it to, I think an aversion people have toward it is the predictiveness of it, or the like this is how you are because it says you are this way, and I don't subscribe to that at all. It resonates for me in my chart, but I'm like, if you don't like it, who cares? You got to be whoever you are. There's so many
totally.
other factors in our lives, like our upbringing, our parents, or this or that. And I know people who have like certain signatures in their chart that just like don't seem relevant to who they are, and that's fine. Anyway, okay, I want to rein it in because
Yeah.
I really want to talk about your creation of your business, and Amrita One and the navel oil, and this is sort of like what I'm seeing, and what you said at the beginning is that you are rebirthing yourself, and I feel like the creation of this is a part of that
Hmm.
some way. And I'm curious if you would share the story of the creation of this business and this oil. I know it's like vast, so just in whatever way feels alive right now
Yeah.
and what you want to share right now.
It doesn't feel vast. What's like I think is amusing right now is how uncomfortable it is for me to transition into talking about earthly matter, but it is so important. You see, like I can surf these waves, and then it's like, all right, but you're here to do this. This is your earthly experience. Like we're there, we're doing it, we're physically creating something. But the uncomfortability that just got activated in me with the thought of having to talk about earthly matter, which is what this is. I brought heaven to earth is essentially what it feels like to me. So I'm going to start with this. We know the story of me kind of struggling throughout my incarnation with being in this body and being here and being fully embodied. And I felt the call at the beginning of last year as far as the Gregorian calendar goes, like January of 2025, I felt this like deep, like, oh my gosh, like, it was so dense. It was so dense. And we've talked about density is tough to work through if you're like us. And I felt it. I felt it in my gut. I felt it in my stomach. Like there's something you're like forming, and you can't ignore this. You can't ignore this. And I've studied Kundalini, obviously. I've done so much. I've had so many spiritual initiations in this life, in this incarnation, that are like, just my toolbox is massive. Like I can tell you what to do for this and what Kriya and what meditation and what breathing, what pranayam. And I had such a heavy toolbox that I was like carrying around. And what I recognized, or Spirit actually told me last year around January, was drop the bells and whistles. Drop everything you know, everything you're carrying around, bury it all, give it back to the earth. It's done. We're starting over. That is the rebirth. If I've been in spirit for most of my life in the spirit realm, and I'm here and I'm agreeing to be here in this body, it required, and this is a big quote that I want to actually incorporate into my brand and probably embroider into things because it came to me around that time, and it's rebirth requires renunciation. It just kept echoing to me like you have to renounce something, you have to remove and like lighten your load. And so all these things that I had so much deep familiarity with, everything that made me who I was, and I didn't even intentionally do it. I just dropped it all. And it was painful because in that I had to lose friendships and connections in that world briefly. Do I feel like we'll reconnect? Yes. But in those moments, I had to renounce everything. And I really knew to obey spirit in that moment because I had experienced so much profound loss and I was carrying around so much grief from all of the loss that I knew every time I ignored spirit, I literally would experience another loss. Like it happened, it would incarnate into the physical. And so this time it was like, listen to spirit. And essentially, like, that was in January. And I noticed, like, I just stopped doing everything. I unfollowed accounts that were even remotely spiritual or all of it. And I just started wandering around, like, and I'm back in my parents' home with them. And that was a big part of my rebirth. I had to leave my familiarity of my home in Brooklyn and come back here. And, they're gone 6 months out of the year, usually, like they're in India and then they travel. So it's not that I'm surrounded by my parents, but that also forced me into reality. And so getting to know my parents again, relearning my parents as an adult, relearning my roots, embodying, because here's this woman that physically pushed me out of her body. Here is a man that raised me. And here we go. Like, this is it. This is what it's about. This is, here you are. You can't escape your embodying, like you can't escape embodiment when you're around your family. And I want someone to challenge me on that because you can't. It's like they bring out parts of you that you're like, what the fuck is that, right? Like, and in that same breath, my father raised me, and both he and my mom are very much into natural healing. My dad very much is into that world. And so I definitely was always familiar with natural medicine and understanding herbs and plant life. And my dad's garden is beautiful. And I come from a family of farmers in India. So, like, we've had a connection to the earth for a very long time. And when I was in New York for 20 years, I didn't really get much of earth. Like, didn't have much of earth. I'm sorry that putting your feet in the dirty grass in Prospect Park is not it as much as I want it to be. So being in my dad's garden, picking mangoes from his mango tree and a starfruit tree, and being here really activated that like part of being in my body. And so essentially what happened was there's this oil, it's very commonly in Ayurveda, is this really healing oil you put into your navel. I mean, you can use different types and they have different purposes. So like sesame oil, castor oil, there's so many, and all those oils have their own personality and properties. So I always tell people to be careful. If you're not buying my oil, which is tridoshic, look into the properties of certain oils because they're not always meant for your dosha. In Ayurveda, we have three body types. And so what happened was at the same time that I'm going through all of this experience in my family and being here and not being able to escape and having to feel through all of our ancestral trauma, right? Specifically, you know, with what happened, which I won't speak on because that belongs to certain other members of my family, but we kind of collectively went through some traumatic moments together. And it was, we were forced together and we're like, we're going to work through this. We're going to support each other, hold each other up, forgive each other, and keep it moving. But
Yeah.
that was probably the most traumatic moment, one of the, of my life, and that was last year around March. And so we as a family just got it together. We're like, all right, solutions, let's do this, let's do that, let's start moving the pieces together. And in that, this oil that my dad had brought back from India, right, like, and he travels to India all the time, he's around our family, and so he would always just bring it back. I was so used to having it that I just stopped using it because it was just something, right, that I would have. And it was my sister-in-law who's like, do you guys have any more of that navel oil? And I'm like, yeah, I'll just have my dad bring more. Like, I'm like, sure, if you love it that much, take it. We have some here at the house, like whatever it was. And she kind of activated this knowing in me that and I said, why do you love it? Like, what does it do for you? Because it does so much. She's like, she said something like, my digestion is completely different. I did it one night and I just can't believe the difference I felt the next morning. I was like, oh, that's interesting. As I'm experiencing a rebirth of my family, I started using the oil again because I'm like, all right, let's see what, like I might as well use this now. And it has so many benefits. So essentially what this oil is, it's an Ayurvedic oil. I learned in India this time around that it is an ancient script. It was orally passed down and it has been preserved. Um, I just went on a trip to India and discovered that. And that's really the purpose of my trip, is that because I was feeling disconnected from the medicine because I didn't recognize it as my own, even though it is mine. It's my, it's my family's, it's all of ours. But I didn't recognize it as that. And so I wasn't able to fully connect into it. And it's 46, combination 46 different oils and herbs. And they are synergistically working together. They're talking to each other. And it goes as far as the herbs are ground down over and over and over again. And there are prayers chanted into it. And what it does is it's like the ancient form of nanotechnology, where it makes it so bioavailable that it goes right into your system. So that's why it is so potent, because I know a lot of people use castor oil and all these other oils. This is a really bioavailable ancient form of that. And I even learned like how the ingredients talk to each other. Like there's actually coconut milk, and I thought it was coconut oil, and that's what I had on the ingredients the whole time. It's actual milk. And the milk doesn't spoil because of the way that the milk is used. It's just so wild. And it's there to speak between the oil and the water in the formula. It helps to marry them, right? And I like, because I have such a deep connection with plants, I just was like, they have personalities to me, and it was so wild to be able to experience this in India a couple weeks ago. So honestly, it was kind of crazy in that moment financially. I was in between worlds. I have this situation with my family where, a lot of Indian families are like this. It's like we're in this together. We build generational wealth. We really, that's a known kind of thing in our culture, is that's what we're known for, right? That's what we do. That's what my dad did. And it's not, I don't have a trust fund or any of those things, but there is an understanding of, this is for the tribe. This is family money. This is how we're moving through this. This is what we're doing. And in that moment, like I was in this weird space where I had a job, it was a remote job, and I quit it. Kind of like had to let it go because of what was going on in the family personally. And in that moment, I was angry about it. And then I realized what a blessing it was, because I wanted to work with just that limited amount of money I had from that. And I remember I knew in that moment, like renouncing all of these tools essentially that you've been carrying around and feel a little too heavy and dense, has now brought you to this place where everything's really real, including money. Like everything is becoming really real. Like you have to kind of face these parts of you, and what it felt like to be in New York and provide for myself, and what it felt like to finally make six figures, and all these things that I had moved through. And like coming back to this place and being like, oh, So I have to talk to my dad about this. Like I have to do the, like all these like loss of freedom and autonomy that I really worked hard to have as a woman in my lineage. And so I knew like I was kind of limited if I wanted to do this. I also had known my past and how fast I abandoned things because I'm like go right back up to the ethers. And so like everything just kept falling into place. Simultaneously, we're trying to rebuild our family and move through, our own everything that was coming up for us. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, I found these beautiful perfume bottles, old perfume bottles. I'm gonna order these. That's $150. No big deal, right? Like, didn't have any real plan. And
Yeah.
then I said, asked my dad, like, can you order some oil, like a bigger amount from India and get it over here? He did that, got it over here. Next thing I'm like, well, I want this thing to be beautiful because beauty, which we can talk about another time, but I feel like beauty is being stripped away from our lens purposefully. And I'm such a like I want everything to be beautiful. Like I really, even the way I place a lotion bottle on my counter, like I really want things to be beautiful. And I want to it's like the magic eye, right? It activates so much in your heart when something's beautiful. And so I knew I wanted the bottle to be beautiful. It's not practical. And so I got these little printed labels, and I didn't know they would end up looking like this, but I individually cut each one, and I have to like uh, kind of press it on, and it's like this, I forgot, it's called 3D something. I don't even know how it happened, but this is how you know spirit is leading you, because it was like I don't have any memories of it really. I just remember just kind of like, okay, next this, okay, next I'll do this, all right, I have $250 left, let me do this. And it just started becoming this thing. And before I knew it, like it's a thing. Like it is now a thing and it is my business. I could keep going, but I want to create some space in this. So just for pausing and feeling into it.
Yeah. I love it. You were really in the story and on a roll, and I was just deeply listening to you and following all of it and this journey of creation. It's really powerful, and I think like what you were beginning to say right there at the end is at the beginning too, of just like really being guided and spirit asking you to like drop the bells and whistles and very like the what I'm taking it as is sort of like, yeah, like all of the structures and perceptions of things that you have, all of these frameworks, like just let those be, and like coming back to the core, coming back to the truth, and like also being invited into that through a family crisis and a family moment, and that deep karma that we all come in the world with through our family a lot of the time, of just like these ties. Like I really believe that our soul chooses that constellation, and it's here to be a deep medicine for us, but it's often really challenging. And that's where we like receive our core wounds. That's where we receive our programming. And then so much of our arc is having to work with that and break through that and remake that for ourselves, and like using that medicine to become who we really are, which is closer to our soul and less of our like programming or our persona. And so I'm hearing so many threads in all of this of like you birthing yourself, you birthing this oil, the guidance you're being given. And I do think often in the most potent parts of our path, we can't see the way. And that's because the way knows the way and
Oh,
we don't.
yeah.
And I was just talking about this with someone in my life over the past few days where, yeah, it's like how you know you're on your path is you can't see it, it disappears. And it sounds like that is like what really came through for you in the biggest way, of just like the next step and the next step and the next step. And when we surrender to that, in my experience, is when really magical things come into being. Like we're not trying. The energy of trying, and I'm saying this now because I am always like I'm most of the time I'm in trying energy. Like that's a big part of sort of like my gene keys world too. Like a lot of my signatures
I
have to
love
do with like
this.
I do too. I love it so much. And a lot of my shadows all in some way have to do with trying. It's like me trying and efforting is exactly what blocks me from what I want. And that's been a really challenging thing.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's like when we're really being guided, there is no trying. You just like get the idea and you just do the thing and you don't even really know what you're doing. And you were saying you don't really have any memory of it in some way because you're in a trance of being guided by spirit and being guided by source of, okay, do this, order these bottles, here's the thing, do this. And it's just like these little steps is all we get to see, especially in those vital moments of creation sometimes. And so it's so beautiful that you got to really describe that for us because I really want people to take that in of like, you don't need to try. You just need to listen deeply and then act on the inspiration with like a pure heart.
Pure heart is the pure heart is really where it's at. It really is
Yeah.
kind of the glue of trusting the present moment and not having like all of this other noise.
Yeah.
Also, when you were speaking, I was thinking about how when I buried, all of that and unintentionally, like every day I buried something new, I'm sure, I felt and saw God so much clearer. And, I felt God and relearned my trust and love and relationship with God enough that now, I think I had a friend ask me, like, would you ever go back to Kundalini or would you do this or that? And it's like, well, at this point for me personally, my relationship to God has become so crystal clear and there's nothing between us anymore. There's no like yeah that I could do to connect into something if I this is just my personal lived experience. I feel God so innately in around me at all moments that it almost feels like I would be doing myself a disservice to pick up some of those old tools when the path has been cleared for me, right? In that space. It's true. I just have like tunnel vision and it's like whatever you throw at me, God, I'm picking that up. Like there's no more of the other. Even the other day I wanted to do the one of the Har Kriya tantric Har and I couldn't do it. My body just wouldn't let me do it. And
Yeah.
it was this old familiarity of going back to that. And I literally just dropped to my knees and prayed. It's all
Yeah.
I did. And it worked. It worked. And so like I'm not saying this is everyone's experience because I there are medicine and wisdom keepers on this planet that have a completely different role here. And they maybe do need to carry that medicine and provide it to others. But mine is kind of doing away from all of that and just having this clear channel to God, and keeping that channel as clear as possible at all times. Like that is really, really a big part of this as well for me is like make sure you keep that channel clear. Like don't cloud it again. Don't cloud it with expectations or this is what I want to do. And essentially my biggest plan leaving New York was I'm going to open a bed and breakfast. I grew up in the hotel industry and the motel industry, and I always knew I was going to find my way back to that, but make it magical because I lived in motels, right? And I had all these weird experiences of living in a motel in Ohio. I wanted to bring that back in a mystical, magical way for others, right? Like this kind of transient world where, but keep it beautiful and mystical and I think that's what we're all here to do anyways. We're rewriting our childhood and creating it, recreating it. And so even that sometimes I'm like, well, I'm supposed to do that. I need to keep looking for land. I need to keep, even watching your mom steward her land was one of those seeds planted moments of you don't even know how to steward land yet. Like, who do you think you are, right? Like watching your mom do things, I'm like, oh my God, she's going out in the rain to walk the goats. Like, I'm taking a nap. I took a nap when you guys did that. And so, like, that was also one of those moments of like, you're not even ready for this. Like, stop with all of this and just keep that connection to God as clear as possible. Like, you know how they say, keep your eyes on the prize? My eyes, the prize is just God. And so it's like, that's it for me. Even now, like all of the unfolding of the oil and all, I want to go back to the root of that oil, by the way, because I didn't say this. I'm like, this is me skipping over. It's a navel oil that goes in your belly button because I never said this. That is a practice that is used, even in babies with colic, they put castor oil, it's a very common practice in Ayurveda in India. And interesting enough, like your belly button was your original cord to your mother in the womb, regardless of whatever relationship you had with your mother. it doesn't matter because that was there and it was providing nutrients. I have a friend that had a baby and the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck, right? So there's so many stories of what that means to you personally. But if you do away with those stories and just know that that was like the original cord that provided you nutrients in the womb, and that it left an opening, it left this space. And there's someone I met like that works in physics. He's so like interesting, and he sent me a message on Instagram and he was like, explain the physics side of why he thinks this oil is so cool. And I just couldn't even like wrap my head around it because I was like, wow, I just see spirit. You're seeing like a whole nother world. But this idea that you receive nutrients through this portal in your body is like, I mean, I don't think we pay attention enough to these things. And originally, I had, like, when I started this, I had known that one of the teachings in Kundalini when I wanted to do a workshop was how do we protect in Ayurveda and India in our ancient scripts, we talk about the nine gates of the body. The eyes are two gates, the nostrils are two gates, the ears, the mouth, anything that allows something into your body, those are the gates of the body and they are to be protected. It's a city. Your body's a city. It's called the nine gates in the city. Be careful what you look at, right? Be careful who looks at you. Be careful what you ingest, what you listen to, what you speak. And so I like originally was like, I'm going to do an oil for all nine of the gates. Like, I want to do oils around the gates. I want to, protect the gates. And when I was teaching Kundalini, I was thinking about what mantras for what gates, what seed sounds resonate with what gate, like all of these things. What rituals can we do to cleanse our eyes at night from what we've seen, what we've consumed through our eyes? And so this I obeyed in a sense of like, no, the first one is your navel. It's not a gate, it's a portal. It's the first portal. It's not even a gate. You had this before you had any of the gates were even formed. You had that portal. And how insane that this is just this oil that we had in the house that my dad brought like into our family here. And he's so connected to the earth and he knew the power of it. How this story is so magical in so many ways. And Amrita literally translates in it's also like the same when you have a Kundalini awakening, the same kind of nectar that flows up your spine. It's Amrita, it's the immortal nectar of the gods, is what it translates to. It's a really beautiful story. And interesting enough, that is what I wanted to call the bed and breakfast, and that's literally, it was called Amrita One. And the only reason the one is there, because that's the name of the company, is Amrita One. And I love that it sounds like a spaceship, like a vessel, and something that could be continued like two, three, four, five, right? So let's say the bed and breakfast is next, because it very well could be. It could be Amrita two, and like that is like the physical embodiment, the physical space of this world I'm creating. But the one was so unintentional because I had a Pinterest board called Amrita, and I'm a big Pinterest girl because I have manifested so much through Pinterest, like just visually creating something and creating that in my subconscious and then it becomes reality. But one of my like loves of every lifetime, his name is, he's not here in the physical anymore, but he had added me on Pinterest. Like he wanted me on these boards and like, well, I think I'm still on the boards. I'm not really ready to look at any of that, but I think it's gonna be 4 years since he left in May. But I was like, let me add you to this board because he knew about the bed and breakfast, and I really wanted his help in building it. We were so in line with so much when it came to that. So I sent him an invitation to Amrita, the board. And then I said, wait, but I want one for the furniture because he and I were both so into furniture design. So I deleted that board and I tried to recreate Amrita again and it wouldn't let me. It said, this board already exists. This board already exists. And so I put a one on the end of it and sent that to him. And so when he passed away or like transitioned, and I had that like, well, I wanted to do this with him. I wanted to build with him. And I felt like, I felt like the crushing in of all that it took lifetimes to find again. And I went back to that board and he was still on it. And I was like, this is it. Then I leave Brooklyn and I go follow what we had planned, what I planned. And he wasn't always involved in the plans, but he was. When I think back now to our story, I'm like, oh, he was always a part of this. And the fact that he's no longer here, and it means the immortal nectar of the gods. Like it was so unintentional and it ended up being this really big thing. So he plays a big role in all of my choices and decisions with this. But the Amrita one was because of him. And I think that's so funny now because the one was so unintentional and the number one is so important, in numerology too. Aren't we in a 1 year, by the way?
Yeah.
Right? We're in a 1 year. It's birth, right? It's God. It's so crazy. So yeah, that I think it's just interesting now, like piecing it all together. And this is probably the first time I'm speaking on it. So I'm a little scattered as I'm starting to piece the story together and the beauty of it and how it was birthed. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, no, you're really channeling, like you're in it. There's nothing scattered about anything you're sharing. Potent and spot on, and you're just in the flow, and we are receiving deeply. So
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
for
you for saying that.
sharing that. And there's so much there. Like I'm really just being with this because there's so many elements. And I just, yeah, in that first section of what you just shared, you were really speaking about that channel being cleared to God and all of the practices that we have in order to get back to God. And I think that there's sort of this awakening happening right now, actually, for a lot of people that you're just like, oh no, like I'm already there. I don't need the practices. I feel like that's like the toolbox that you put down. And that's also to me that trying energy, right? Trying to connect to God.
Discipline.
And you don't need to try because it's already there, it's already inherent. Like you just have to remember. And it's in that remembering. And
Wow.
so important. And I think that that's so much of what's happening on earth right now is this collective remembering of who we really are and why we're really here and like our potential to create and our potential to be here and like be powerful creators on earth and with God, like by God, through God, guided by God. And that we can do that in an instant. Like we don't need a Kriya, we don't need a teacher, we don't need anything. And like I love those practices.
Huh?
I
It's
weave
how
and
we met. It's like it's
yeah,
literally brought us
like
back
it's
together.
important. Like, as you said, I think there are some people who are here to bring those lineages forward because before we remember, we might need the
An
practices.
activation.
Might need the activation. We might need to move energy and clear blocks and like clear the chakras and the things. And we might have to do that before we're ready to just be like, I have a direct line at all times. Like I don't need to have an operator connect me to source.
I have a question for you. In your trying, because you said it was a part of your, the gene. I'm obsessed with Gene Keys, and we'll talk about that another day because it has Richard read to me. The way that man's mind works just sends me out into the ether. Is like if I watch him on anything, I'm gone basically all day. But in the trying and that being such a large part of your chart, like in the gene keys and how you navigate life here, have you surrendered to that? Do you see medicine in that? And now knowing that there's a clear channel to God and source, like I'm sure you're finding that as well at the same time as I am. Does it change that karmic path for you? Does it change your story in any way, if that makes sense? Because I understand the trying element. I do. I feel that. And I feel like I have that in me.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's funny because that I need to I'll send it to you because I'm not sure which gene key it is for me, but in like the deeper description of that gene key is where it really talks about this relationship. And it's sort of like I think of it in a lot of ways. And I think of it as actually such a beautiful function of myself, of efforting toward my dreams and toward my vision. So I want to work with it in a way of not like shaming that part of me or shaming the shadow because that's not really the most optimal way to work with a shadow anyway. Like bringing the light to the shadows is the only thing, and we're like loving ourselves into wholeness. And that part of me is just the part that wants to create. Like it's just third chakra energy. It's just will. It's just will wanting to do things. And like overactive will I talk about this a lot in my own work because the way I see it is this relationship between my will and God's will. And it's like, and that's what we're talking about. Like this
I mean,
whole
this
thing.
is literally the macro of everything we're talking about is that one.
Yeah. It's just like I have these ideas about my life and this vision for my life, and I want to make it happen and I want it on my timeline because that's just human. That's just how the human is set up, and that's fine. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
And there's a lot that happens when we surrender to a higher will, which is God's will. And God's will is all seeing, and our will is finite. It's the same idea. It's like, okay, we want this partner in this place to do this, but God has this huge vision of all of the threads connecting. And God knows, okay, I want to be with this person because that's who's in front of us, that's who we see. But God's like, okay, you need to like be with this person because if you guys get together and have like this baby, that baby is going to become this thing. Like it's this whole bigger web that
yeah,
we just can't see as human beings. It's not that what we see is wrong, it's just that it's not the whole picture. And so when we surrender to God's will and this higher vision is when we don't have to rely on our own forcing anymore and our own creation. We get to be guided, and that's when things flow. As you're saying, like the creation of Amrita 1 wasn't, it was God's will as much as your will is always involved, but it's like God's will first. In my opinion, when things like really flow and really happen, it's because it's coming from a higher place instead of like a human place. And it's this meeting and it's this balancing and there's this ebb and flow and there's when you have a business for a long time, which we've talked about a little bit too, like there are moments where it's not flowing. And that doesn't always mean that we need to quit. It just means like,
which is my first instinct, by the way. Quit.
yeah, of course. Of course. And it's like my first instinct is to push harder, to make it work, to force it into place, like make it work. And And it's like neither is right or wrong.
No.
It's just you have to be with the cycles of creation and ride the wave and be like, okay, right now it's not working. I just have to wait this out. And then you have a new experience that comes into the field eventually. And so much about being a human is just being patient.
Yeah, that moved me. What you just said just moved me. I really needed to hear a lot of what you just said. Really, thank you. Thank you for offering that to me because there was so much there that I needed to hear. And again, that's God, right? Because I have been hesitating on being on a podcast or talking about any of this. Like I just didn't want to. I don't want to, right? And the second you and I started exchanging voice notes, and I was like, and I was waiting for you to ask me again. Like I think that you kind of dropped it. You were busy. You were in between moments, and then like I knew in that moment, I'm like, this is probably the only person I would open up that portal with, like and that was just the clear channel to God that told me that. I wasn't overthinking any part of it in that moment. I'm someone that is very cautious of sharing my essence, as I've talked about. And so I just knew in that moment, like, this is me and God in the room right now. Even the way you were moving when you were talking, I was like, oh, it's a dance. And so, like, you're dancing with God. You're not like sitting in this rigid, structured space with Him. You are literally dancing with God. And like dancing, learning how to dance and move and flow with someone is an art. It's not easy. If you ask a dancer that, she's like, no, that took 20 years of me, like learning this technique or this understanding of my partner. And of course, everything in life is a dance. Friendship is a dance. Family is a dance. But the ultimate relationship with God is your ultimate dance, the most important dance, and learning how to move in that. So like just like how I quit the oil for a second and kind of went off the deep end and was like, I'm done, wrap it up, it's a wrap. Like I'm going back to the spirit world. It's literally so we can talk about that moment because it's so important. Is like 7 months into it, what happened was I think I put on Etsy just to earth this experience for people who are probably struggling or might be struggling with the same experience as you and I is it was so slow. I put it on Etsy, and then I applied to these markets in Coconut Grove in Miami, these markets that I love for vintage clothes. I'm such a I love vintage, and I have a dear, amazing friend that owns vintage stores. And so I love what vintage represents. I love everything about it. So, I'm like, why not just go sell the oil there? It's fun. One of them was called Little River, or a couple of them. And that's how it started, as this kind of, all right, I'll go set up a table there and meet people. And the craziest story is when I moved down to Florida, I was still very much in glass delusion state, and I had suffered so much loss, and I was like a tortured animal at that point. I had been caged up for so long, and I realized that in New York I had, even though it felt so free, I had intentionally put myself in captivity. And even though everyone from the outside was like, wow, you had this life in New York. And it's like, well, it was actually all captivity. Now looking back at it, it was captivity. My beautiful little apartment was captivity. And I did it to myself. And it's almost because I knew my spirit was too big to hold. And I had to and certain earthly situations, people would tell me my spirit is too intense. Like I do everything so intensely. And my experience had been that, especially in past relationships, of feeling too intense or, too much, and putting myself in captivity. Coming out of this self induced captivity, I felt I really did feel like an abused animal, like this, like I was coming out of shock. I lost all these things through literal death. Like the last thing was after losing, and that was really tragic and really fast. The next year, probably a couple weeks before his anniversary of the year of him transitioning and leaving, my little pet bunny dropped dead in my hands in my bed. Like he was fine the day before. And I was already anticipating grieving the loss of, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. God, you've got to be kidding me right now. You're lying. You are lying, right? And so I had suffered so much sudden loss, and so much I hadn't really faced coming out of it and coming down here to South Florida. And one day was like, I'm going to go drive down to Little River Flea. I'm going to go check it out. Like it's at this beautiful hotel called the Mayfair. And I love hotels, and I want my own hotel or bed and breakfast. And wow, I can feel my ears are ringing, which is so wild. I went alone. My parents were in India. They're there most of the year. Like I have this house, I have the freedom, the garden. I went alone. And I don't know what took me down there, because I was still in the state of feeling really, really, feeling really unsafe in the world. And I remember that day calling my friend after leaving that market. I brought one silk Victoria's Secret slip dress that I still sleep in. It's my favorite piece of, I'm obsessed with the color. It's so vibrant. It's so Florida. It represents freedom. It's this beautiful purple or magenta. And I remember I was walking around that Little River Flea, which I didn't know 3 years later I was going to have a table in this exact hotel selling this product. You could never have convinced me that this is the way it was going to go. And I walked around and I had my headphones in. Like I was still New York. I would have had my safety music on, and I had and no one does that in Miami. Like now they do a little bit because it's so much more walkable. No one had their headphones in, okay? It was a beautiful sunny Saturday in Coconut Grove. Like people were talking, and and I just headphones in, head down. Like I was looking at everything, but I wasn't looking at people. I wouldn't look at people. I just couldn't do it. And it scared me. And I got back in the car and I was driving home, and I called my friend and I was like, I'm a little scared. Like, I can't look at people. Like, I'm scared to look at people. And this goes into the glass delusion of how much more pain and shattering can I take? I'd rather just be in the spirit world. So I'm going to put in my music and I'm going to do this thing I love, which is vintage. And but I'm not going to be here while I do it. Like, I'm going to go somewhere else while I'm doing it. And I'm not going to acknowledge people around me. And I noticed people looking at me, because I think in that moment I didn't realize that I was a magnetic creature. I am magnetic in a lot of ways. And I wouldn't acknowledge them back. I remember doing that specifically. And then coming back here and just feeling so alone and scared, like literally a tortured animal, and putting myself back in captivity in this house, and barring up the doors and like, okay, I went out in that world. I didn't die. Like everything's okay. But like feeling really upset at myself for not being able to connect in that moment and like not being able to move through this intense grief I was feeling and all these plans I had for my life that were gone. And I remember my friend like just holding the space for me as I like moved through that. And then fast forward to this oil is finally bottled. I have it in its container. It's labeled. And I'm like, now what? Like, it's on Etsy. I'm kind of posting on Instagram about this thing that is literally changing my life. The more I used it, the more it opened up in me. Like, the more it was releasing physically from my gut, but also spiritually and emotionally, which is why I really focus on that emotional component of this oil as well.
Yeah.
So I tell people to start slowly. It really does move a lot emotionally as well. And I've also had friction from people that wanted like immediate results because of what I say it does. And I'm like, this could take a year of you using this. This is subtle medicine.
Yeah.
Subtlety is coming back in full force. Everything is subtle now. Like we have to tune into the subtleties, and that includes this medicine that I'm providing. So I went and I applied for Little River Flea. And at that point, she was only accepting once a month, you would find out. And there was such a demand to be at her market. It's like, I don't know, she's kind of seems like it's been closed down for 3 or 4 months now. But back then, this was the coolest market. And if you wanted to get into this, you had to do a whole application. And when I heard back that I got accepted, I was like, what? Like, I was just kidding. Like, what do you mean? And it all flowed. I have a bunch of vintage that I've been holding on to. My mom had all of these pieces that she pulled out of her closet with tags on it from the 80s and 90s. And her stuff sold faster than mine. And the cowboy boots I bought in Colorado during our rewilding retreat sold right away. That was the first item that sold. And I didn't want to let them go, but they're like 2 sizes too big for me. And I'm like, I gotta let these things go. And all of the stories I had attached to these pieces, it was so cool. It was so cool. I love that I'm going back there right now because it was like magical. The experience was so, so magical. And yeah, like I couldn't believe I was there. And I had this table and I like had my little rack of vintage and my oils, and it was magical. Yeah, it was really cool. And so that's how I started selling the oil. And I remember I knew that I had to have vintage because I was like, how do I get these girls to pay attention to this medicine? They're there for vintage. They're there for beautiful items. So I'm going to have this tiny rack. And they like, lo and behold, like people be attracted to the clothes and then they'd be like, what is that? Like, and I originally started off giving away a lot of samples, like just saying like, try it, try it. And a lot of those people have now come back and are ordering and reordering and messaging me. Like this is like almost 8, 9, 10 months ago. And so I was in this like deep flow state of doing these things I love. They're both essentially the same thing, which is taking something ancient and old and giving it new life, which is vintage and this oil. And so like 7 months into it, in November of last year, I felt this deep, deep, deep loneliness in the experience because I am alone in the experience, even though my family is a part of it. It's me really navigating that ship. And my parents left again to their annual trip to India. And I felt so alone in the experience because when I would come back from the markets, my mom was here. She's like, how much did you sell? What did like there was this experience that I had that I didn't have anymore. It got taken away when my parents went to India. And I hadn't realized that because I'm like a grown ass woman. I love being alone. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. They're gonna be gone. I'll take up the whole downstairs with my vintage. Like it's gonna be great. And that loneliness started creeping back in. And I started like really feeling the depths of my loneliness and feeling like the truth of what isolation has done to me in the past and the pattern of isolation. And then finding this person that I didn't want to isolate from for the first time in my life, and then him passing away so fast and re experiencing isolation in a different capacity. And that story is so layered, and just to like kind of honor the entirety of that story, and it's so sacred to me. I re-experienced it again, in so many ways after he left. And maybe one day I talk about that experience. I'm not sure yet. I'm not quite sure where that lands for me, but I experienced it again in November and it hit so hard. And I called my dad and I like couldn't breathe because I couldn't stop crying. And I would come back from the markets and I just, even though I was selling and I was like, you know, all these things were happening and I was getting a beautiful response and selling at one of like the most sacred humans in my life, her store. And me and her were roommates 12 years ago when both of us were like working multiple jobs, trying to figure things out, going through breakups. And we worked in nightlife together, like all these things. And now it's like she has these stores and she's doing so well. And my product is now in her stores. And this little bottle carries the essence of my entire journey, right? And it's like it on her shelves. Like it was so cool. But I hit a wall regardless. And
Yeah.
I wasn't able to articulate what I was feeling. And for the first time, I realized I feel safe. And I'm finally starting to feel things that I haven't admitted to not feeling. I've never felt safe in this world. I certainly didn't feel safe after experiencing so much death and trauma and losing who I thought was like the strongest man in the world. Like I literally was like nothing could take him from this earthly experience, right? And I did I feel something coming? Of course. Did he feel something? I'm sure, but you know, in that moment, it took away the safety I thought I knew about the world and about like my own psychic abilities that I had always relied on. Just all got completely wiped away. And so I had to feel all of that this November. And so I'm in here rebirthing this product and this it's starting to kind of segue into newer ideas and all this other beautiful stuff, right? And it like hit me and I knew in that moment, like, all right, put it aside for a second. And the way it came out online was, this is the final oil, guys. So I didn't even like really talk to anyone about it. Did it, which is so me. But like, I remember people were like DMing me, like, what do you mean? Like, no one could really like understand. And I couldn't articulate myself enough in that moment to tell them, right? I couldn't say, hey, I think my nervous system finally feels safe. And now I'm dealing with a bunch of other loss and grief that I have not felt yet. And now that I feel safe in the world, I have to deal with those emotions that have come with the loss and what really essentially burnt this oil. And these dreams I had with someone, I also have to grieve the loss of that, right? Like grieve so much I didn't do that I wanted so badly, even though God was like, no, like, you know. And so, yeah, it just hit the wall. I posted online. Oh my God, I swear. And I had the most magical experience at a farmer's market. And I'm like, met these beautiful humans that are now in my life on that day. And the next day, I think I posted, I'm like, we're done. That's the last of the oil. Thank you for supporting me, guys. Goodbye. So I literally did that. And yeah, I'm happy it happened that way. And my dad, when he had passed away, I remember asking him, what would you do if you were me? This is a really like unique situation, a unique love, a unique experience. And what would you do if you were me, you know, in this kind of chaotic, confused frequency? And he said, I wouldn't do anything. And I didn't listen to him. I got back in my car with my bunny and I drove up to New York and just tried to go back to normal life. And this time I heeded his warnings and I listened. And he said, this is what I'm going to tell you right now. Don't do anything. Put the oil away. Put it away. Put it all, every bottle, everything you have left, just put it away and don't do anything. Just don't do anything right now. And I said, okay. And I didn't really do anything for those 2 months. And here I am. Like, it's like, you know, now it's what, March? And this was in November. I didn't do anything for like 2 months. And I started sculpting. I found art. Like, I've never really sculpted. And I knew something inside me said, you're going to be really good at building and creating. And it directly mirrors all the experiences I'm having in my life. And so that's been a form of therapy. The people I've met at this studio have changed the whole trajectory of my life. And that's where I'm at now. And then I went to India because I chose to just stop because
Yeah.
I paused and I allowed myself that sacred pause, even though it felt wrong. And everyone in businesses tell you it's wrong. And everyone that's like, you have to learn to scale. And now what's next? And all these things that you hear in the business world that people are like, now what? And it's like, I listen to God first and foremost, and it's stop, like just pause for a second. And He allowed me that space to pause, thankfully. And so that ended with my trip to India last month and revisiting the oil. I wasn't even sure then if I wanted to bring it back. And then when I had heard about the beauty and the sacredness around what it is, oh, it's on. Like that oil's not going anywhere. Like it's definitely not. And so that's where I'm at right now, like kind of figuring out what's next with it. But that was sorry, that was a long, long story, but it had to come out.
There's really so much in there. Like, I think there's like 7 podcasts in what you just because there's just a lot of threads that are there. But really, like, I'm just going to come into the creation process that you're in and allowing ourselves the arc of life and allowing ourselves to be with really God's will and God's plan for us that is so beyond what we can see and perceive, and the people that come into our lives and the people that leave our lives, and the things that we imagine that we will be able to do and build, and then the ways that we're always moving around a blind turn, whether we know it or not, whether we're psychic or not. Like, I also have all of those experiences and always, there's so much that I am tuned into, and then there's things that I can't see. And I think that's how it always is. I'm thinking of Hamnet right now. Have you seen that film?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, what is it?
It's called Hamnet.
Hamnet. No.
Well, I'll send it to you, but it recently just came out, and it's the story of Shakespeare and his wife and their personal lives. And she's like a psychic, and she's like us. She's a mystic. She's in the realms and carries that lineage. And what happens in that film is she has all of these senses of things that are true, and something happens that she didn't anticipate and she couldn't
Send it
see.
to me. Send it to me immediately. I'm watching it tonight.
Yeah, it's really, really deeply beautiful about this human experience and this fragility that we're speaking to, this impermanence, this knowing and not knowing, and how we live with that in the
Mhm.
flesh. And even if you're really tapped in, there's still the great mystery is still so much more vast than us. And like, we're just here for it. And you were sharing about your relationship and the path and the business, and like there's so much, and I really want to honor that. And there's there's so many threads that I feel like we just don't have the space to fully unpack, but I'm just so grateful that you shared that with us. And I think for anyone listening, knowing that the threads and the path are always unwinding, and all we can really learn to do is be with it and be in the seasons of doing, and then be in the seasons of pulling back and being in the grief and allowing our bodies and ourselves to process, because as you're saying, like, it took so much time for you to even have this moment to process your personal life and what was happening, and just being with this ebb and flow of everything. And we're just in I want to like also transition us into kind of like this final piece of this moment that we're in collectively. And you said this to me the other day in a voice note,
Mhm.
and we've been touching on it a bunch of times, but I want to like speak directly to it. Of what you said was, we were like, "Oh my gosh, it feels like there's so much coming at us so fast, and we feel like all of these things that we've been working toward and cultivating and dreaming about are just going to like land fully formed." And what you said was, we were like, "Oh my gosh, the veils are so thin. It's so wild." And then you were just like, "Actually, there is no veil."
There's no veil right now. Mhm.
And I think like that's this space that we're in. It's just like thoughts are turning to things so fast because there is no veil. And I think that is part of this collective remembering of our power and our immediate connection to God, like that closeness to God, that oneness with God, of us being like creation being lived out by Creator, and the things that are right there. And we have to kind of like open ourselves to that, right? Like, we're not going to be a clear channel if we're not a clear channel. And and it's like within that, I'm saying this and I'm saying, okay, there is no veil. And we have to be really mindful of what we're calling in. And I think really specific, because I feel like I'm calling things in. But if I even like misspeak or misthink by like this much, I get exactly what I said but maybe not exactly what I want.
Absolutely.
Like you have to be really careful what you wish for right now because I do think it things are landing, things are coming through, and I'm really excited for this time. Like I think both of us also share a shared vision that is kind of like niche right now, which is bizarre, but that we are like moving toward heaven on earth, that we are moving toward the golden age, that the things that are coming are really good because I think a lot of the collective is in this like doom spiral that I just do not relate to. I don't feel it
Yeah.
in my body at all. Like I feel the frequency rising. I feel like everything coming in a really positive way. And that's not to say that there's not horrible things happening, but it's like that system has to burn for anything to live
Yeah.
and, and for this deeper truth to come through. And within that, the other thing is like, and I think that what you shared really spoke to this, especially in your relationship. Like we can want whatever we want. We can have whatever vision we want. We can turn thoughts to things. We can be these powerful creators. And it's like we also have to remember that there's a vision beyond the vision that's not ours and that we don't have a say in. And we
Mm,
have to be open to that and just yes step into our power, our creativity, like be this force in the world for good and creation. And we just don't know, like we are fragile, the world is fragile, we're always about to be
made of glass.
blown blown to
Yeah, yeah, that's a good, like, it's bringing everything full circle to talk about this. It's really, really important to me. Like, it's a big reason why I even do what I do is because I know. Because if I subscribe to a doomsday narrative right now, I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd be building a shelter and like hoarding things. You know what I mean? Like, if I really tapped into that frequency, that's what I'd be doing. But I also have a lot of grace for those that are in that world. And I actually like support some of those Instagram accounts that are kind of like freaking out about what's being revealed, like the great revealing, because I actually support them as I have so much compassion for that wave of awakening that's happening. Because let's say if we had an awakening 10 years ago and some people had a 5 year, it has to happen in waves, right? The collective amnesia, like if everyone woke up at once, like it would be a disaster essentially. And so these waves are happening in the way they're happening to like, that's how great God is like, I'm going to gently move people into this. You know, some people have really intense awakenings, right? I've had people reach out to me like, remember what you said in 2020? Like, oh my God. Like, and they're like freaking out because you were right about this. And it's like, well, take a deep breath. Like it's okay. You were softly landed into it and now you can go here with it. And but I have so much compassion for those that are kind of attaching to the doomsday frequency because a lot of them are waking up from this amnesia. And just like what was familiar to me of captivity and putting myself in captivity is the same familiarity that they're battling in within themselves of like, no, it has to be doomsday because everything's always been doom and gloom. Like, no, 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 and it's like, it's scarier for them to envision a new world, right? And envision that heaven is on earth. I know this. And I know that prior to everything we've been feeling up until this point has been hell. Like I think we felt heaven in moments. Like remember the other day I was telling you that I used to call God, right? And how absurd. I think I told a couple of people like that's absurd. You're out of your mind. But it was really understanding like I'm just seeing divinity in someone else. The divine is reflecting so heavily that I'm seeing my own divinity through that person, right? That's all that is like this mirroring. And like it's always been hell because we have not been able to see. We get glimmers of divinity. And so we think things are beautiful, right? Like you get a glimmer of divinity through love, let's say falling in love. You feel this like divinity, right? It gets activated in you because you're like, God sent me here to do this with someone else. And like you start understanding a little bit and then it gets taken away and then you're in hell again. And so we've only experienced, I think like 0.1% of heaven on earth. And those glimmers, if you can remember those times that you felt the glimmer, like this divine force, and everybody's felt it. There's not one person who hasn't. You can't lie to me about that because I can bring it out of you. Because my name is Moonlight and I will bring it out of you. Like there, and so is yours. But like finding the divinity in moments, like I can take you back to a moment where you felt that and imagine that amplified because that is literally what's about to happen and is happening. But remembering, like, our community needs to remember to have a little bit more grace with those that are in the doomsday timeline because they have to be there right now. They have to, like, they have to have a softer landing in these moments. And so they have to, and they also have to reveal the grime. You have to be able to face the grime in order to see heaven on earth. You have to see how dirty and dark it's gotten because it's dirty, right? It's really, 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 really dark. And I've known for years. So like for me, now people are talking about these things that I'm like, yeah, unfortunately I've known, right? Like I've known some of this like details and it is very real. And it is, like there's no denying that that kind of filth has existed.
Right.
Yeah, but I think because of where our waves of awakening, and I think we also grew up in families like where we were given a lot of this already. Like I know your mom, so I already know like how you grew up, right? And I grew up in a similar way. So it's like when I say these things to my parents now, they're like, yeah, like it's like I have parents like that. Like I said something to my dad about something about quantum physics and how there's multiple realities at once. He's like, yeah, like there's no like arguing. My parents are like, yeah, that makes sense.
They're on it.
Yeah, yeah, they're on that wavelength right now. So I just and not all of my family is, trust me. Some of them are like you're paranoid, you're crazy, like you're neurotic, whatever when I say these things. Anyway, all of that to say it's happening in waves and I have never been more sure now than ever. And I've oscillated at times in my life that heaven is on earth. And just like birth is painful, it's painful for the baby. It's painful for the mother, right? And it's the creator that's creating the creation. Both are very traumatic and painful. Like the baby is being squeezed through this tube. Like, what the hell is happening? I was just in this safe space. And the mother is going through her own contractions, just like the earth is the mother. And it's being reflected back to us right now as we're in the birth canal. Literally, I think we're crowning right now. I think in 2020 I said we're in the birth canal, and right now it feels like we are crowning, and that is so scary for a baby. Like, what the hell is happening, right? Like you're reincarnating and you're like, what the hell is this? And the mother is also like, are you safe? Like, are you okay? As the baby's like crowning, right? And there's that final push and that final contraction, and it's just where we're at. It's where we're at, right? And so I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And it's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now and why the mother archetype feels so important to me to activate. Because I've
Mm,
always been the maiden and the mystic. And it feels like that time for a lot of women and mystics in my life, because we are late bloomers. It's time to activate the mother in whatever way that means. And that could mean in the physical, like literally, right? Or it could mean something else. But that archetype, it's time to activate that and be okay with putting this thing out into the world, right?
yeah, that's so beautiful. I feel like this is a really nice area to kind of wrap us up of like calling, especially women, to step into that their own version of their role of mother. And I think that it's so funny. I think because we were talking and I was looking at your notes and you mentioned this, but I was really feeling that like yesterday and last night of my own self, of feeling my maiden energy. And the maiden is all about like self exploring, like it's all about self in a
Yeah.
way. And the
Yeah.
mother is about the whole. It's about like stepping into this fierceness and this power and like saying the thing that needs to be said because you're in service of something so much bigger than yourself, your babies, your business, your whatever that is. And I think it's also like the rooted, grounded, like wiser feminine. The maiden is beautiful. The maiden
So
is play and and innocence. And the mother is not innocent. The mother knows.
The mother knows. That should just be the name of the episode. It should be The Mother Knows, right? Like,
We have so
because
many
it
things.
means so much to me.
The
Yeah.
mother is this, it's the mother knows and she like executes, she acts on her knowing. The maiden might know, but she's just gonna be
Yeah.
like this is the way things are. This is the thing. It's not that rooted and grounded. And what
Mhm.
also happens when we step into like other versions of the feminine and a really healthy feminine is that it also really invites the masculine. And we, women, I think, have been waking up before
Mhm.
the men. Like we are tapped into source and wisdom, and like we are the channels, I think, in a way that men aren't. Not that they don't have access to that, their access is just different than ours.
Yeah.
And it's just a different thing. But I'm really seeing also in myself and in the moment that I'm in of like me being in certain really healthy expressions of my feminine is activating and inviting the masculine in my life
Yeah.
to rise,
Yeah.
to become,
Yeah.
to root. And we really need that energy from everyone right now. We need our healthy feminine, we need our healthy masculine, both like the healthy masculine and feminine within us and the healthy masculine and feminine out of us, or like physical being, the male female versions of that, because we really are craving harmony, we're craving balance. Like we want this heaven on earth, we
Yeah.
want the light to win, we want the moonlight and the sunlight, we want
Yeah.
both, we want the
Yes.
light. And so I think we're just like, we are crowning, we are coming into that light and that birth individually and collectively. And like, what a time to be alive. Holy moly. Like, what a gift. What a
What a
beautiful
gift.
thing.
What a
And
gift.
how challenging and how delicate and how special and
Yeah.
how
All of it. All at
brutal.
once. Yeah. This was
I
so good.
mean,
I could keep talking and talking, but I know that we've been talking for hours. But I'm like, there's so much more being birthed about you
yeah.
speaking about the masculine. So that'll be another, because that's something that's really been at the forefront at this point for me, and understanding
Yeah.
how I can support the masculine in a way where we can do this together gracefully, you know?
It's like, I think there's this potential for this really beautiful circular symbiotic relationship where like the feminine feeds the masculine and the masculine feeds the feminine. And I'm experiencing that in this really particular way for the first time in my life. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is creation. This is God. Like, this is the whole point. And
Yeah.
I've known that, but now I'm experiencing it. And it's the best drugs there are. Like,
It's so
it,
true. It's so, I want to say one more, I know your story so intimately, like most of it, like, so
yeah.
yes, knowing
And
your
it's
story,
exciting.
yes, it is the best natural drug,
Drugs. I
that
mean, that's so weird, the
discovery
term
and
to use.
beauty. Yeah. One more
But
thing I'm going to say that I think is
yeah,
interesting about this, and we can cut it or edit out or whatever, because it goes on another topic. But I've been thinking about, there's so many ideas of what I saw in a partner throughout my life. And like, I never really made it real or tangible. Like, I've always been in very long term things, situations. I've never dated really. I'm not like a dater. I just love so intensely that it's like, we're either doing this or we're not. So it's like never been something like that I've had to think about. I've never dated. I still don't date. That's just not a part of my who I am. But recently, because I have this list of all these men I've met in my life that I admire for one reason or another, that like activated something in me regardless of what we shared. And I have their name, and I have a little couple words of a description of them next to the name. And collectively, they add up to this one man, right? And I thought I met him, and then I thought I met him again, right? It's like this, like I was like, oh my God, you're the embodiment of everything I had envisioned in this man, that I don't even know if he's here. I don't know, because I lost him, and then I found him again in another form, and then that's gone. And so there was like this, like, what the fuck is this list? I just looked at the list the other day. Then I started adding women in my life, that I love and admire, and one word about them. And this can be someone that broke my heart, like a man that broke my heart. Like I met him and then we couldn't be together, whatever it was. They created a spark of love in me so I have this list. And the other day, because I can feel myself shifting into wanting to support the masculine better because I feel strong enough to do that now. And how can I hold that frequency for them? Because I don't believe that it's easy right now for men, like good men in the world. And I started listing now that I have this massive list of what all these people have offered me in the world and given me these little gifts, what am I giving? Women don't talk about that enough. We don't. Okay, you want this out of a man. I want to manifest this type of man. I want to manifest this. But what are you gonna give, right? Like what are you? And it's more difficult than you think to list off. This is what I want to provide men in my life, like my brothers, whatever, my dad. This is what I want to provide this specific man. This is how I want to show up for him. Go ahead and make that list because that is the reverse of what we've been taught as a woman, right?
Yeah.
And it's like as women, and it's like, no, let's start making the list of what can we offer the masculine instead of constantly saying they need to offer this to us because it
Yeah.
changes everything.
And I also think that like that's the trick, like ultimately, because like in order to receive, you also have to give. Like they are connected. So,
Yeah.
okay, you want your dream partner, what are you going to provide for him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not going to receive without providing. And you, as the feminine, also get to provide in a really beautiful way. It doesn't like, I don't think it like that
This
provision.
is like scrubbing the kitchen floor.
Yeah, like that provision can like be being in your truth and your essence because like that is also what the masculine really craves. Like he wants your whimsy. He wants your fairy qualities. Like he wants that connection that we have, I think, in this different way to the ether. If you want, especially, I think, like a grounded, providing man, he's going to want to provide for you the more that you're in your flow and beauty and whatever version of whimsy is yours. Like he's going to be attracted to that. Like that is that polarity that we get to call in. And like the more consciously you can play with those things, the more consciously you can be in that state, the more the more you're willing to provide that to him on an open platter, arm outstretched, hand held up, the more like you will find him and he will receive him and it will be like a moth to a flame.
Yeah. Like perfect receiving and giving.
Yeah.
Like in a cycle, it just keeps going and keep going and going.
It like feeds itself. It's like you can feel it. I think when you experience it, it's the craziest thing. And I mean, I want to bring this like out of the partnership and just like into life. Like I think life also desires that of us.
Yeah.
Creating a business desires that of us. Like,
To give
okay,
and
you want a business, you want to receive money, you want to create something, you have to be willing to give in order to receive. Like you have to move forward. And there's so many ways you can do that. And each of us has our unique signature of that. But like, what is the exchange? Because there's always an exchange in life. Like it
wow.
is like, it's like you have to like keep coming with the tray open, the platter open of like, okay, I want to create this thing. I'm willing to give my time. I'm willing to give my energy. I'm willing to give my creativity. And then you receive in return for that. And I think that is a big part of heaven on earth. It's like finding harmonious exchanges because I think what's been really out of balance is really inharmonious exchanges.
Yeah.
Are
Yes.
like grabbing and stealing and taking, and it's like really depleting instead of when you're in that harmonious relationship, all you have is energy, all you have is life. It's not depleting to give your gifts. It's not because they're your gifts, they come naturally.
They
And
just
then
replenish.
they just replenish. It doesn't, it's just like they're always there. It's a well that is is constantly
Wow.
overflowing.
Oh
And
my
what
God.
I think, I mean, I'm discovering this as I'm saying this, but the era we're going into, I think, is that it's the era of the overflowing well.
Wow.
because we're going to be reconnected to our truth and our gifts. And when we're moving from that place, it's not depleting. We're not depleting the earth. We're not depleting each other. We're not stealing and grabbing and forcing. We're giving with an open palm, willing freely. And then we're nourished from that. Our giving nourishes us because everything is met when we're like giving in that way.
I think that's the key. That's the key is the giving. And even me, admittedly, I've been so like conditioned, or this is my survival instinct, is what can I receive? Because it's, that's just what's kind of conditioned in us. And a part of this awakening process is like this understanding of, well, what can I give then? Like, if I'm receiving this, what can I give? And specifically also with that symbiotic relationship with men, and like, how can I give and what can I give? And I've been better at that and like remembering that with the few men I have in my life. I don't keep very many men close, just because it's just something that is sacred to me. And I don't really, I have women, like a tribe of women, and there's a couple men sprinkled in that are close, but even them, I'm like, I really feel this need to want to give more than I receive now. And that's like such an interesting kind of like flip. Like this must be the new, what we're also being like initiated into something else. We're going on another level up. And in that initiation, I believe that it must be about what can I give and like give more. And it's scary as a woman right now. I'll just end it by saying this because so many women are angry and they have misplaced anger at this kind of programming that they purposefully placed on us to hate each other, and like men ain't shit, and this whole kind of like fuck men, it's not always a man but it's always a man. And it's like, well, for me, lucky enough, that's not my experience with men, like in every capacity. Like anyone I've ever been with, anyone I've been in love with or loved, like they haven't shown me that they're beautiful humans. And I have a brother and a brother-in-law and a father that have represented, like, I know if I called any of them at any moment, they would find a solution for me, like a grounded solution to a problem. So I have a different understanding around men, and I have compassion for women that hate men. But it's scary as a woman who doesn't believe in that, because I think I made a comment once on something on Instagram, and a girl called me a pick me, and I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know, and I had to go look it up, and then I deleted my comment because I was like, first of all, this page is all women. Like, who's gonna pick me off this? Like, I'm so confused. Also, like, yeah, I want to be picked by a man. Like, I don't want to just sit here. Yeah, I would love a man to come pick me. Like, I want the man to come pick me if he wants. Like, he needs to come get me because I'm not looking for him. Like, come pick me if you want. But like, in that moment, I got really afraid of women. Like, I was afraid and I was scared. And I'm like, I can't even speak honestly about my experience around men and having strong, great men in my life, even the ones that broke my heart, like a relationship that might have broken my heart. I still love that man and see the divinity in him. So it's like really hard for me that women are so angry and worked up because I keep reading these comments on these things and it's hurtful towards men. And I have a brother that is so amazing, and he's so like resilient and able to work through his shit and be hold himself accountable, and he's a great father. And so it hurts me when I see women talking about men like that. I'm like, this isn't cool anymore to me. The Taylor Swift culture of like hating all the men, like I'm like, I don't want to participate in it any like at all.
I think it's shifting. I think like we're coming into wholeness. And I think that like I hope that there is a lot of healing and a lot of shifting that happens just naturally as we evolve into, I think, this next stage of humanity and like coming into balance, coming into wholeness. And I don't know like how long that's going to take for maybe certain timelines to get there.
Yeah,
I do know that if you want that timeline, it already exists.
yeah, that's true. We were just saying that.
Want
Yeah,
to like I similarly like I've only had really beautiful relationships with men and I have three brothers, so I feel
yeah,
really rooted in my like respect for the masculine and the healthy masculine and that exists and we're
yeah,
so here for it.
yes,
We could
so
go on
good.
forever and we will. We'll
No,
have other podcasts and other moments.
can't believe it's
But
5.
I am just so grateful for your wisdom and for you coming on here and for sharing in this really deep, profound way and for being this channel that you are. And I just am so thrilled and excited for you and so honored that you were able and willing and excited and curious about speaking and about coming on here and having this conversation. And it felt so nourishing, so enlightening. You're really on the path that you're meant to be on, and it's all unfolding. And I'm so excited for to watch the next
Yeah.
unfolding of this. And like, I'm here for it. I'm
Thank
such a supporter of you and your creations. And I think that there's so much happening and will happen in our collective future together.
thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this, and then thank you for opening the portal with me into this. And like, you know what this is doing. It's opening up something completely new for me, and you're very aware of that. So thank you for being here with me and allowing me to co-create with you and open this up in this way, because this is really it's really an opening that I'm about to jump through, and it was created in this portal while we were speaking today. So I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Beautiful. And so it is.
Yes.